friends, I'm Steph. Welcome back to my channel where we influence. So as the title of this video says, I'm going to be reading like an influencer for a week, and I am reading like one of my favorite influencers who I happen to go to college with, kind of. I'll tell you that story in a minute, but it's Jenn. She's been one of my favorite influencers for a very long time. When I say we went to college together, I just mean we both went to UC Davis. We were not friends by any means. We did cross paths at different points in time, but I highly doubt she would ever remember who I was because our crossing of paths was us going into each other's workplaces. At that time, I wasn't really watching her. I only realized because one day I was watching YouTube and one of her videos was suggested to me, and I was like, oh, she looks really familiar. And I clicked on her video and realized that she went to UC Davis and that we had crossed paths. And she's just one of those comfort people for me. I just really enjoy watching her vlogs and her content whenever I'm not feeling the greatest. And guess what? I'm not feeling great. So I've been watching a lot of her content and I realized that she's been doing like food vlogs, and she's been doing videos for the past year, which I somehow missed, that are all about 10 books that you should read. And I think she does one every couple of months. So I decided that from those videos, I was going to pick 4 different books and read them. So how I chose the 4 books was that I decided to go through the videos and see 2 books that I own and was interested in reading at this current time because I'm kind of in a little bit of a slump. So I wanted to read things that I was actually interested in. So for the 2 books that I actually own and will be reading, I chose Hunger by Roxane Gay and that's upside down, and Song of Achilles. And then I wanted to choose one book off of her all-time favorite books ever. So out of the top 10 books on her all-time favorite books list, I chose Perks of Being a Wallflower. I have read this, but I do not remember it at all. People say it is like the most pivotal book in their reading experience. So I decided to choose that one and reread it and see if I have a riveting experience. And then for the book that I had never heard of, it was The Convenience Store Woman. And this seems like it's a short, weird book. It is actually a translated fiction too, so I'm very excited about that. Also, I wanted to incorporate more food into this vlog because Jenn does a lot of what I eat in a week or in a day, and some of the meals look really good. So I'm gonna be recreating some of those meals and showing them to you guys. So with that introduction out of the way, I'm actually gonna start with Song of Achilles. So let's see what Jenn says about Song of Achilles.
A couple of months ago, I read Circe, and I absolutely love that book. It was mentioned in my last books video, and so many of you guys recommended Song of Achilles. So this story is about the relationship of Achilles and Patroclus. Now, I'm pretty sure we all know who Achilles is, but Patroclus is the narrator. So Patroclus was exiled from his home as a young boy, and he is sentenced to live in King Peleus' kingdom. Now, King Peleus just accepts exiles from all around the world because that way he can grow his army. It's actually a brilliant tactic. But anyway, this is where Patroclus and Achilles meet. And they're both kind of outcasts in their own way. Like, Patroclus has always had trouble fitting in, and Achilles is a bit of an outcast because he is a half god, half mortal, like a demigod. So in a sense, people just hold him to a different standard and find him really intimidating. But yeah, they end up being fast friends and then eventually lovers and then life partners. It's really beautiful and just tragic all around. Like, it will take you on a roller coaster of emotions. They end up going to war against the Trojans, and you are just in it for the journey. You just gotta buckle up. It's very action-packed, emotional, heart-wrenching. Just get ready to get transported to another world when you're reading this.
So Song of Achilles is something that I have had on my TBR for a while. I don't actually know how long I've had it on my TBR, but I've had it on my TBR for a while. And somehow I've managed to avoid spoilers or really anything about this book. The only thing I absolutely know for certain, it's usually on people's favorites book list, and it's usually a book that broke somebody. I think I saw Noelle talking about this book in her list of her favorite books from 2020, and she talked about this devastating her. When I put on Instagram that I was starting this, a lot of people told me that I needed to prepare myself for devastation. Thing is though, I don't know anything about Greek mythology. I know very little about Greek mythology, so I feel like a lot of this is going to go over my head. I have not read the synopsis of this. I'm just going to go into it and expect the worst.
So long, silent movies, to quiet dances on the screen. So long to burning slowly, smelling sweat and kerosene. And all the actors on the stage are rolling cigarettes and whispering so low. Call my parents up, tell them I'm not coming home.
If you were to ask me what aesthetic looks like, I would tell you that it's using your receipt that was shoved in your book from when you bought it in 2017. I bought this book in 2017. It's 2021.
So long, silent movies, to waking early, staying late. I think I'll head on down to Reno and try my hand at real estate. And I'll fix up a Cadillac and find a girl who likes to dance so slow. Call my parents up, tell them I'm already home. I swear I've seen my share of black and white. And I swear this screen never tells the story right. So long, silent movies, and all the talking in between. Cleaning dust off of the press box and fixing broken tape machines. Wasn't much of an actor.
We got freaking plants. Hi, so it's been a few days. It's been like 2 or 3 days since I updated you. I have finished Song of Achilles. I finished it like a day or so ago, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really did enjoy it, but I think because everybody kind of told me I was going to be devastated by this book, I sort of figured out / knew what was coming. And so while I was really sad at the ending of this book, I wasn't exactly like shocked by it. There were other small things that happened before the ending of this that really got to me, especially with a particular character that you're introduced to later in the book, because I really liked her and I wanted so much more for her. But otherwise, I was really surprised at how much I actually loved this. I don't know much about Greek mythology. It's not that I don't like Greek mythology, I just find it to be confusing. But despite not knowing much about Greek mythology and only knowing a few of the gods and kind of what their legacy is, this wasn't that hard to follow. It's just that certain things went over my head. I do think that had I known more about the Iliad and the Odyssey, I could have made more distinct connections and maybe felt more attached to it. The story is more about the 2 main characters than it is about what is happening around them, which I think is why I really enjoyed this book, because I'm a big character person. Like, I enjoy character over plot. I enjoy a really good plot. But if the characters are more well developed and more interesting and the plot is not as interesting, I'm usually still fine with the book. I can still like really enjoy a book. I know some people are the opposite, or they're like 50-50. Despite this being around for a while, I actually didn't know that much about it. I've recently seen a few people put it as like their favorite books of the year last year, so 2020, and I kind of had an idea about the fact that the two main characters were more important than the rest of the story, and that people were really devastated by this book. Those were like the two main things that I knew. But yeah, I really enjoyed this and I'm excited to read Circe, but I was kind of feeling slumpy. I don't know. I've just been in a weird headspace recently. I think I'm just feeling really isolated. I think I moved a few months ago from my hometown to Southern California so recently, just because of the pandemic and moving during a pandemic and not really being able to go into a job where I'm like meeting people or doing other things where I'm meeting people. I've just been feeling really disconnected from everything, even social media. I'm just feeling really disconnected. And that's okay. I go through phases. That being said, despite being slumpy, I have been reading Hunger. I'm on chapter 30, page 115. And this section so far, because this is section 2, section 2 resonated really deeply with me, despite the apparent differences between Roxane Gay and my own experience. There were a lot of feelings that she was explaining and expressing and writing about that I just resonated really deeply with. I do realize though that this is almost halfway through. So I haven't really updated you guys since that day that I was feeling some type of way, and I'm feeling a little bit better, but I did start and finish Hunger. Wow. I finished this yesterday. It's really interesting to be reading a book or to have finished a book that came into your life when you were starting to rebuild a relationship with your body, which is what happened to me. recently I have come to the realization that, especially during quarantine, but more so the last 2 years, I've not really cared for my body, and I've not done the things that I should be doing to care for my body and my health overall. Obviously, our experiences are very different, but there was so much that was discussed in here that I related to, and it was actually hard for me to read this in like full sittings. I would have to listen to it throughout the day at different times and different days. It took me a very long time to get through this, and there's a lot of reasons for that. There is talk of sexual violence in here. It's pretty graphic, but it's Roxanne's experience, so she's very forthcoming about it and real and honest, and it is sprinkled throughout the entirety of the book. Obviously not as in detail as when she first tells you about the experience, but she talks about how this trauma has affected her and how it's a big contributor to her body and how she treats her body and how she treated her body. So it's obviously a really huge theme in here. And then there is also cultural and social commentary about fat bodies and how the world looks at fat bodies, how doctors look at fat bodies, how the media portrays women's bodies, and how it kind of leans into diet culture, and how diet culture is often a result of needing women to take up minimal space, and how a way to do that is to make your body smaller, to make yourself smaller and more palatable. There's a lamp right here. This was simultaneously a lot to take in, but also really changed my perspective on so many things, because I think one of the things in my life that I admittedly don't pay attention to as much as I should is accommodations for disabled people within, the world, just in general. Like, how accessible are things for people with disabilities? And Roxane Gay talks a lot about this because she is talking about how, being a fat person, there are many things that she has to think about just going into the world. I mean, are there stairs? Are there elevators? Are there ramps? And so she discusses how her experience has made her really empathetic to disabled people, and how the world is not accommodated to them, just as the world is not accommodated to fat people. And she gives many examples and many anecdotes of how this is true and how it manifests in the world. But yeah, this just really hit me at the right time, because this vlog, this time in my life, has been a time where I'm really changing or trying to change my habits, because I just haven't been at a great place with my body. Even Roxane Gay talks about that's across the board. A lot of women's experiences is learning how to deal with their bodies, and learning how to deal with your body in terms of what society deems beautiful, what society deems appropriate for the woman body. Obviously, her experience is tougher and more complex than my experience. I don't know, I'm really thankful for this book, and I'm thankful for the rawness of it and the realness and the commentary that she provides. But that being said, after finishing Hunger yesterday, I did start The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and I think I said in the past that I have read The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I think I read it when I was like 13, and then I watched the movie as well. But somehow I really don't remember how this book ends. I remember the build-up to a big conclusion, but I don't remember how it ends. And I was looking at a few of my friends' ratings on this, and it's interesting to see like very different and drastic ratings on this book. But let's see what Jen has to say about this book.
My next book recommendation has such sentimental value to me. It is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I read this book when I was 15, and it just left such a huge impact on my life, because this was one of the first books that I read outside of my assigned reading. So when I read a book like this and I followed the story, it was like a storyline that I was just genuinely interested in, and there were a lot of characteristics of the main character, Charlie, that I felt like he just got me. He was sensitive and introverted, and those were the personality traits that defined me, especially when I was younger. And when I reread it as an adult, there was just like this huge, overwhelming wave of nostalgia. It's crazy that when you revisit something from your past that you love so much, to be transported and feel that same way is just, it's insane. It's like a time machine. So this book will always have a special place in my heart, and it's very interesting and an unconventional coming of age story, but I feel like I understand why this has affected so many teens.
I don't think I ever noticed before, but my copy says MTV Books. I guess that was a thing. So anyway, Jenn talks about this being a novel that shaped her as a teenager and how rereading it was one of those really nostalgic experiences. So far, I'm not feeling very nostalgic about it, but I also don't think that this was a book that I felt shaped me when I was 13 years old. I remember really loving the movie and watching it over and over again. I think that my experience is more tied to the movie. What is that thing that was going around that was like, what is the book that you shouldn't have read at a particular age, but you did read and it fucked you up? It's probably this. So I'm gonna continue reading this and see if I feel nostalgic about it, if I end up liking it upon reread. I'm gonna be honest, I'm like 30 pages in and I'm not connecting. Plant update, we got this really cute pot for the string of pearls. I still need to actually replant it, but we just got the pot and I'm so excited. It kind of matches this pot, but I didn't want it to like exactly match. We got rid of the leaf garland that was here. Spring has sprung. I actually really do like spring. Fall will always have my heart. Don't worry, Olive and the pumpkins are still here. So we still have some fall in our heart. I've been having a love affair with Earl Grey tea recently with some milk in it. Well, soy. I don't drink milk. But yeah, it's delicious. So last night I finished The Purse of Being a Wallflower and I didn't love this book. I had a very similar experience with The Outsiders where I felt like had I read this at 14 or 15 years old, I probably would have absolutely loved this book. But much like The Outsiders, I felt like I read it too late. And as an adult, this doesn't like hit me as hard, I guess. I mean, I was emotional about the reveals of certain things because there's a lot of hard moments in here. Like there's sexual assault, there's domestic violence, there's homophobia, and there's a lot of like questioning of purpose and fitting in and just feeling different. And like I think a lot of teenagers have this experience and this feeling of being othered. And what's funny is like I vividly remember my teenage experience. Like it is burnt into my brain. But for whatever reason, when I read a book like this where it's a book that's genuinely meant to put you in the shoes of this teenager, I'd never connect as much. I don't know why. Oh, as an adult. As a teenager, I would have ate this shit up. I think it comes down to the writing style and diary format. I hated the writing style, and that's solely because it's supposed to sound like him speaking. So there's a lot of like run-on sentences and a lot of explaining things in not great detail. So you feel like you're missing huge chunks of this story, of this plot, of what is happening. And like in reality, there's not really a plot happening here. So the diary format works, but you don't know anything about Charlie other than like the devastating things that are happening in his life or have happened in his life. Then you're learning about devastating things that are happening in people's lives around him. And so it feels like you're not getting the full picture. And it was hard for me to connect because you just got these like info dumps of something really devastating that happened, and then there's no resolution for it, especially the big reveal in this book. Just like Jenn said in the video when she was talking about this book, she read it when she was 14, and so it became a favorite book at that time in her life, and so rereading it was a nostalgic experience for her. For me, it wasn't a nostalgic experience because I didn't really remember the book that well, but I remembered the movie. So it would be interesting to see if I watched the movie, if I felt really nostalgic for it and enjoyed it more than I enjoyed reading it. And I think that's what I ultimately mean when I'm talking about like my experience connecting to The Outsiders and this book is different because I'm reading it as an adult, and I did read this as a kid, but I don't remember it. And The Outsiders I didn't read when I was younger. So my connection to it isn't nostalgic. It isn't, I'm coming of age with that story. So I don't think I was set up to have this like riveting experience with this book. Anyway, I also started The Convenience Store Lady, and let's see what Jen has to say about that.
Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. If you follow my girl Whaley, you guys know that she has been raving about this book. So I decided to pick it up and I ended up loving it. So this book follows the life of Keiko Furukura, who is a 36-year-old woman, and she works part-time at a convenience store. Now, she is a very unique character, definitely wired a bit differently from your average person, because she finds all her purpose working at the store. She like lives and breathes the store. She has been working there for 18 years and she just loves working there. But the issue is that the people around her are constantly like questioning her and nagging her on like why she's still working there and why she's not striving for anything higher. And it makes Keiko feel some type of way because she's genuinely just happy working at the store, but because she feels this like weighted pressure, she ends up trying to go outside of her comfort zone and take a stab at living life a little bit differently. This is an extremely fast read. Like I finished this in a day and a half and I found it really relaxing. I personally loved the descriptions about the store, how it worked, how it functioned. And I think it's because I've had so many part-time jobs growing up. So it reminded me of like getting in the zone when I was working at the smoothie shop, like restocking items, checking in for the expired dates on the chips and like moving them closer to the front of the store. I don't know, there's just something very satisfying about the routine of working at a store and making it a well-oiled machine.
So I'm not very far into The Convenience Store Lady, but I actually love it already. I always forget how much longer it takes to cook brown rice as opposed to one of my favorites is jasmine rice. Let's just say I started cooking things way too early for when the rice actually finished. I also finished The Convenience Store Woman and I loved it. Jen is right that when you are reading this, you will be sucked back into your retail days if you're not already in your retail days, or maybe you've never been in your retail days. It sucked me back into stocking shelves, making displays, cleaning, the phrases that you learned to greet customers and to kind of like talk them into trying something. I primarily worked in coffee, but I also worked in a grocery store for like a year and a half. And at the grocery store, we weren't allowed to call customers. We had to call them guests because it was an experience. They were having an experience. And we had so many acronyms that we had to remember in order to give the best type of customer service, guest service. But it just really took me back to those days of being in retail. It did not make me nostalgic for those days because I don't miss retail, especially working at a grocery store. But even beyond that, I just really loved the two characters that we focused on, but especially our main character. She is a convenience store woman and she's been at the convenience store for 18 years, and most of her family and friends and even people at the convenience store don't really understand why she continues to be in this career and why she doesn't do what society expects of her, which is to either get a better job that's like career focused or to settle down and have a family. And she's just like, I like working at a convenience store. So she makes up a lot of excuses and lies as to why she continues at the convenience store or why she doesn't have a boyfriend or a fiance or a husband or kids. And while at this convenience store, there is a guy who's hired and he's kind of like a conspiracy theorist, but they end up striking a bargain. And it's just really interesting how it unfolds, how their relationship unfolds, and the way that people interact with these two individuals based off of different societal norms that they seem to be going against. I really loved that at points in time it's just really lighthearted and funny and sort of ridiculous, But then at the same time, it's like talking about how we put certain expectations on especially women in society and how they should behave and the types of milestones that they should be hitting based off of their age. I'm so glad that I picked this one up. It was so small and quick to get through, but by the end I was actually wanting more. Like I wanted to know more about the characters. It was a satisfying ending, but I just wanted more from it because I liked the writing. So I definitely want to look up more of this author's work. But yeah, if you're looking for like a weird, bizarre, interesting, funny story, I would check this out. So that's basically it for this vlog. We read all the books, we ate all the food. I had so much fun revisiting Jenn's videos. I'm somebody who thrives off of being motivated with other people. Like I can definitely motivate myself. I'm a self-motivator. But I get even more motivated when I see videos of somebody else like going on some sort of journey where they were changing habits in their lives and they would vlog the experience of changing that particular habit. I don't necessarily mean like dieting or anything, but I don't know, say they wanted to wake up at 5 a.m. every day. I've always been somebody who wanted to be an early riser that wasn't for work. I'll watch videos where people do it. I'm like, I should do that. And then I get really motivated. I don't know what it is, but I'm feeling pretty motivated recently. And I didn't start off very well in this month mental health wise. I didn't really start the year off mental health wise very well, but this last couple of days I've been doing really well. It also could be because I just ate a really good meal and I'm feeling great. Sometimes when I eat a really good meal, I feel like I can conquer the world, and then I get hungry again and I'm like, please let me know if you've read any of these books, what you thought about them, and who are some of your favorite lifestyle people that you follow. Have you been following them for a long time? Have you just discovered them? Are you motivated by other people's motivation? Please let me know down below. I'd love to talk to you in the comments, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.